do we add?
But they have to be on it first.
Oh, that's like totally right there.
Let me turn it
Okay.
on.
That's okay. Okay, we're waiting for Anjuli. I hope we got enough single. Hi, Christopher. ¿Cómo estás?
All right, we're gonna
Go
add.
live. Go live.
Yeah. Hi guys, thanks for joining.
Is she on?
Yeah, we're sending a connecting with her right
Oh.
now. Hey, there she is. Hi, good evening.
Good evening. Huh?
Good
Hey.
to see you.
Hi, Anjuli.
Hi, Karla. Hi, Eddie. How are you?
Good.
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 Okay.
We're at home.
At home and all of your beans.
Right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Can you hear? Can you hear us there?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine.
Okay. We hear her.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well,
I don't have good light. Maybe if I turn this way, the light's a little better. It's gonna be what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Eric's there.
Thanks for doing that. Hey, Eric. Hi, Jessica.
Oh, I guess. Oh. Oh my God.
There we go.
Okay. Well, thank you for this, and wanted to do it together. So
Yeah.
I always love talking with Anjuli. She comes from coffee, knows brewing, expert in chocolate. So there is so much to pick your brain about it.
I always feel the same. I think we met originally at Andytown Coffee Roasters. There was a Honduras tasting going on, and Myra and Rosie were there.
That was a long time, huh? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. So this one, we were gonna talk a little bit about, the history of cacao, mostly where from the Americans' perspective, meaning it's like Mesoamerica, Southern Mexico, and Central America. So we just talk a little bit about it. So it's always been a drink, like for over 5,000 years, and it's still a drink. So, but I wanted to introduce you guys to this. And many of you are familiar, you'll see it like in every tourist shop. And it's called a jicara, but the fruit that is inside, if you see, is called morro, which if you read in the Popol Vuh, this is actually before cacao. So it's a drink that people was drinking before cacao, before it came here. So it's processed into a powder, and it smells super good. It's like vanilla. It's like our horchata, but juice on itself, it smells and tastes like it.
Oh, wow, there's no spices in there?
There's no spices.
Wow, that's amazing.
So this is a traditional drink. It's morro, people call it horchata, or even some people call it chocolate too. So it's a traditional drink that a lot of people in Honduras and in Nicaragua use it. And I think if you are in chocolate, if you had the opportunity to try it, taste it. It comes in this, which is a traditional vessel for drinking chocolate. But I think once chocolate became a drink and became very popular in Mesoamerica, it opened what it is more for like ceramics. So we had here actually a pre-Hispanic ceramic.
Oh, wow.
It's a monkey. I don't know what the monkey is doing, but as you see, that red clay is super beautiful, very ancient. But chocolate and ceramics all does go along. So there is a lot to read and learn about that. But it just tells you like how important it was and how a drink can create so many industries. And I think we see that with coffee, right? Like now you have all these amazing espresso machines and coffee design. So one thing can just like create so many markets. So
yeah, a lot of inspiration.
Yeah, a lot of inspiration.
The connection between like making chocolate and making ceramics, because you get like the paste in that middle point when you're like crushing the cocoa beans, and like clay and how you like mold the clay into a vessel. So that makes sense to me that they would be brought together. In fact, like what I'm drinking my cacao out of is definitely a ceramic cup.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, where's mine?
And I also had this one because I feel like ceramics and chocolate were so important together, you know. And like you can find like glyph, you know, and that's how you know when a cacao ceramic was used for chocolate, besides having theobromine. But it has what's written on top is so important. It became so fancy during that time, and I think to some level we're still doing it.
Oh yeah.
Mother of the Year, everybody.
Aww.
So you know, we still have this connection of the cup that you drink, or the fancy coffee cup, or the tall growler for beers, you know. So the cup that you drink is very important.
Yeah, it becomes a part of a ritual, right? Like everyone has their favorite mug, and then you have your drink, and it's just kind of like a warm security thing that you get to go to. And even now, I don't know if you've seen like some of the coffee shops before the COVID stuff was happening, they were trying to get rid of all of the like paper cups and to-go cups. So it was like they were going to go exclusively over towards bring your own cup, which was like a really exciting idea. But now it's kind of like, oh, is that a hygiene thing to do? You know, I think the idea of like even bringing that ritual and like making it more personalized kind of gives people a better connection.
And to some levels, you know, the cup that you drink, it has brought so much status too. You know, we go to a coffee shops and you see the cups and it's like, oh God, I just want to walk away, you know, hope nobody sees you, you know. And then you get coffee served in some cups that are like, ew. So I feel like there is something on us, you know, that we relate that, and that's kind of like how it makes you feel, or you know. So
how you decide which cafes you want to work with or not is based on the cupware that they have.
Yeah. No, we love people that, you know, that have a level of craftsmanship, and you know, we don't discriminate. But yeah, it tells you a lot. So I don't know if anybody has any question more about, like, I mean, the history of cacao and chocolate drinks in the Americas is so big. I think people normally go through recipes, you know, and think you just want to dissect a recipe, but recipes is like, even up to now, it changes so much from family to family. So it's really hard to understand it to recipes, or even to understand it to countries. You know, so for me, like when I see of the history of where we come from and the chocolate, I see more about areas and migration patterns, you know, and which people went where, and the stories that they also had about chocolate.
But did they also have spices in it, or was it just pure cacao sometimes?
It had a lot of people think, like, you know, because you read a Spanish thing that say that, oh, it's like a drink for the pigs, you know. But you got to remember that the Mayans were one of the best beekeepers, still one of the best beekeepers around the world. Yeah. And wherever you go, you'll find honey. You know, it was like in that order: corn, cacao, and bees. Those three are like the trinity. You know, and you'll find that in the cosmology of people, of how important, up to now, like how important that is. So I don't think people were drinking, you know, and if you bad things, you know, like things that were not palatable. And if you think about, like, I see it even with my own palate, you know, when you are raised with fresh food and about different varieties and seasonalities, you develop a palate, like many of us can see here in chocolate, you know. So people were not eating chicken nuggets and we're okay with, you know, some thing that tasted bad and they just shovel it. Like, you have to understand that during that time, the markets in Mexico City were huge, you know, in a time where Europe was starving. North America was flourish, you know, and up to now, like, I bet you we will probably have trouble finding here rice and beans, you know, than a farmer in Guatemala right now, because it's surrounded by fruits and surrounded by so many things. So that abundance, I think it creates a taste, and it creates the culture of food that sometimes we don't appreciate or we don't see.
Yeah. How is that present with you when you were growing up and developing your palate?
I just think eating fresh food, you know, we grew up in a farm. Another thing I think is how you approach what cuisine and what good food is. You know, like here is a lot about the aesthetics. You know, the plate has how the plate looks. You know, and we come back again about the ceramics, the plate, and we have the culture of the chefs. You know, here in this culture. But I think over there is about that seasonality and a lot about what determined what was good. For example, with meat, it was the piece that you got. So it wasn't so much about that, but like I knew as a kid, I was never gonna get, like the leg of the chicken, as a kid, you get the wing, so you kind of see it. There is all these subtle ways to determine it, how people are to eat in specific ages, in a specific amount of money that you have. But I think just the ability to be able to eat with the seasons, to see in the perspective of like food as a medicine and food as something that is good for this, good for that. And and I think it's a culture where nobody contradicts you, like nobody asks you to like, well, you gotta prove that, you gotta have a study to show you that this is good for that. So you follow that oral tradition, I would say.
I was gonna say one other thing I noticed. We were just down in Honduras, and almost every day people are walking by selling, chocolate drinks in bolsas and pinolillo in bolsas. It's just ingrained in the culture. It's everywhere.
And pinole is a drink that is made with corn, and that is called like the people's drink. And it's cacao, corn, and whatever spice is in that specific area. But people still call it chocolate. It's chocolate for us. It's used during breakfast, hot, or it can also be used cold, during summer times. So, but that tells you a lot about when people think of like, oh, chocolate was used for the royalty. No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. It was a lot about people had access to it. If we want to talk about democracy and and equality, we gotta look back and like see what we were doing. But
that again compares to so we were saying earlier, there's like 5,000 years roughly of like drinking chocolate culture and history and connectedness, and then you compare that to like the chocolate bar history, and that's like 175 years, like maybe 200 years tops. Like, I mean, there's so much more time for the drinking chocolate culture to become democratized rather than the bar chocolate to become like a luxury good. And even now, like from my experience, like working in the coffee industry and then going over into chocolate, I would notice people would drink mochas and never think about it. And then when I would tell people, to buy chocolate instead, they would be like, oh, it's not healthy, and like, oh, it's a guilty indulgence. But it's like, but when you were drinking it in the mocha, you were getting, half as many you were probably getting the same amount of calories as if you ate the chocolate. It's just because you were drinking it, it was free, a moving part of your, your diet and your day and how you're moving through it. So my experience growing up with chocolate was just so different than what you had, having like the diaspora influence and coming through like a Kenyan Indian background where it was a colony of Britain. My whole life it was like brought to me like these bars that are European chocolate are like the ultimate sacred bars. So I was like, why? Well, Belgian chocolate, that never sounded right. As developed, it's been so great to bring the origin into the front of the conversation, I think.
And I think that's changing a lot, and I think it's something that probably the craft industry is not grasping, but we see like, you see the rising of like chocolate and mushrooms and cacao ceremonies and cacao drinks and, with this and with that. And it's more like this shifting of chocolate from indulgent to become, to be accepted and to people to learn that it's a superfood or, pulling this on that, like, whatever benefits you want to put into it, but besides being delicious. But I think that is changing a lot.
I was going to say, growing up, here in the U.S., it's like a guilty pleasure. That's like the way it's been marketed, like, ooh, I'm going to eat, this whole bar and get away with it. And it's like, for how many thousands of years, cacao and chocolate is food. Right. So I think we're getting back to realizing, how much, health comes from cacao. And how important it is as an actual food.
It was really funny. So I definitely decided early on, like in my college years when I was working at Meridian, that like I wanted to work in the chocolate industry. And the minute I made that decision, my family was like, oh, why would you do that? Like, there's no chance that you're ever going to be a healthy person now. You're never going to do normal. And it was just like that idea was ingrained in them, that it goes with like the sugar and the milk and all of these additives and the bars that actually aren't healthy, but the cacao by itself is so healthy, you know?
Yeah.
And there's been that disconnect. Like, it's a complete food, however you look at it, when you like remove the sugar down. So I think that connecting with that is awesome.
Yeah, I know, like somebody's asking right now, do you have chocolate with motion? How do you choose to use motions? Yeah, Rosie. Yeah, because we had a line with motions, and some people think, you know, of like, you know, 10 years ago when this Cru Chocolate started, and it's like, oh my God, you don't put chocolate only with sugar, and now you see inclusions of everything, and basically it's just sugar, right? But you know, more chocolate has always been blended with something, you know, and motions has been a big deal too in Central America, and I think Mesoamerica. And I think it's because we really don't have psychoactives, you know, like people up north have peyote, down there have ayahuasca, you know, and people in where the cacao regions are, Mesoamerica, there is not, besides, you know, certain animals that will give you those effects. I think motion in cacao has, you know, paired really well with that, and was used as a medium for you know, gain those states of mind. So, well, our motions don't have that, but yeah, that's why we use them, because it's a lot of there's a lot of tradition, a lot to learn about motions, but we use them because those ones are more like Chinese medicine, and I think they're, you know, they're known to like help with the immune system, so I use them a lot. So.
Yeah, I was going to say, before, you know, we made them into an offering in our product line, you know, Karla's drank mushrooms, you know, for years before that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So I think these are, you know, ones that she's used and likes, and
somebody
that in pills, or would you actually get the mushrooms and try and have them as like a whole
bundle? No, we use the extract.
Okay.
So you will like use them actually like boil the mushroom and get the extract to it. Somebody's asking, ¿esta crisis de pandemia mundial afectará la producción? If COVID-19 will affect the production of cacao around the world, what we think? It depends. Like, for example, for us, like people in Guatemala, like we were talking with them, and they're like, we gotta keep working. It's season, we're not stopping. People in Honduras is like, we can't harvest, same season, you know, we can't harvest the cacao because we're gonna get fined by the government. So I think you're gonna have these two. What I think, and I think it will affect it.
It's going to be more in the export, you know, like I've already been hearing that like ports are closing down and things are being delayed. So even if the cacao is still being produced and fermented and dried in a really high quality way, I think it's the logistics piece that's going to be a part of the problem. And then the other part of that is that we don't know how long this thing is going to be a problem. And then what I've been noticing is that the news that travels around the places that are like more remote in the villages where the governments aren't supporting these communities, the news that they get is a lot more fear-based than even what we see. And it's not really representing the true situation. So I think that those are the variables that are going to affect things, and it's hard to say how.
Yeah, and I think like what we're seeing with the people we work with, there is this concern of like the quality, you know, because somebody can show up to work or this and that, and how that's going to affect quality. But I think the main thing will be like, you know, it is important, at least, you know, for us to make sure, you know, those prices are stable, like to those purchase agreements that you have done in the past or we don't, you know, it's important for makers right now, I think, to like keep that, especially right now in this time, because it's affecting it's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, we're talking about mushrooms, and another thing that I wanted to point out was that like kombucha and fermentation, you know, like that's a mushroom too, and there's so much health in that, you know, in that like variety of foods. And in the drinking culture, I think that we're getting more excited about that again, which is
and that tells you, like, you know, like if you grab somebody right now, you know, and you put it, I don't know, like without any kombucha sense, it's like, it's not about something pleasurable, you know. And I think in chocolate, we put too much about like that, like the pleasure. And it's like, once people understand a food, you know, and they see the benefits and they learn about it, you know, the wanting to survive and be healthy and live forever is bigger than our taste buds.
And it's just a bonus that it tastes great.
Yeah.
And how much of it is training our taste buds too, you know, like for me going from doing quality evaluations on like 70% chocolate to doing 100% cacao was like such a shock. But the more that you kind of expose yourself to that, the more you adjust to it. And kombucha, I think, is the same thing. You kind of like adjust and develop that flavor. Like I think when you have beer for the first time as a kid, like, or as a 21-year-old, you're not used to that flavor, but then you get more adjusted to it.
You get adjusted to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, it's very interesting with drinks because they become such a big part too, and like in how you train your mouth to taste a drink is so different than how you train your mouth to taste a bar.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like I know you taste a lot of liquor, right? And you know, so it's very different. Like
down. So I think that like even there's so many different like ways of tasting chocolate that I've been exposed to, and a lot of them say like don't chew it, right? And also there's like, if you taste it melted, then the fat has already volatilized a little bit. So I was going around and I was doing some olive tastings last summer. I got really excited about kind of exploring the California olive industry. And before you taste that, you kind of warm it up in your hands to like volatilize the oils and the fats to really get it kind of being aromatic. So when you're eating chocolate just from a straight bar and you're kind of letting it melt in your mouth, I think you're missing kind of the aroma side of it. It's like I always feel frustrated when I'm asked to like smell a piece of chocolate like this, you know? Or I melt it and I touch it and kind of play with it, then I really get the aromas out because it's volatilized.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the way we eat is so cultural, right? Like, you know, like I just had this conversation when we went back to Honduras, and somebody was accusing one of my aunts was like telling on my mom to me, like, can you believe she grabs those chocolate bars and she hides them and she eats them by herself and she doesn't share with us, you know? And like, and it was like kind of like it's a bad thing to like can't comprehend how somebody will like secretly eat something, without sharing. You know, so and it makes me think of like you know, like even the what makes hot chocolate, right? Like the foam. So like we were talking about like the beer foam and you know, the foam in the coffee and all these things that we take for granted. And if we really understand, it has such a background when it comes to like community, you know, which that has a lot to do with like the ability of everybody around your community blowing life into your drink, you know, and creating, aerating and quenching and welcoming this element of air and communion, you know, and warmth into a drink, and how that changes, right, from how you eat as a culture and what you appreciate changes, like what we see now too with the bar and wanting to eat it by yourself.
Well, and you think about all the drinks, and a lot of them are ferments, which is, you know, something of the place where it's been fermented, which is a culture. And then you're sharing it with the community there. You're sharing culture, literally.
That's good thinking about it. And even on the foamy side of it, like with drinking chocolate, you know, it's the fat that you're kind of like whipping and aerating. It's like an emulsion sort of. And so in the history of drinking chocolate, like there weren't other ways to access that sort of frothy, foamy, ethereal. It's really an ethereal experience.
Ethereal, that's the word. And it was a sign of quality too, because you knew like your chocolate didn't got cut off, you know, with more corn or you know, some
format, you know. But I think the pros that we were saying about the bar is that it fits really well in our daily lives, right? Like if you're sitting in traffic, I mean, I've definitely eaten your bar and all kinds. Like I just keep them in my car, kind of stuffed in different cubbies.
Yeah, that's it. I was talking to Karla earlier I was thinking about a different way of thinking about bars, because it's the way that we eat bars is we let it melt until it's a liquid. So you really are having a drinking chocolate. It's just portable, right? So as people are not necessarily in a tight, close community where you can share that, you're bringing it with you in a bar form.
I can't say I'm that patient. Like so excited.
No, and I think a lot of how I see bars, and it's like when you're tasting a bar, you're like kind of tasting the soul of the maker, you know, in that thought and that ability to like create this process and the frustration, you know.
And so much from the roast to the conch, to the texture, and even to like the mold that you get it out in, size.
And you're transforming cacao multiple ways, and then it's crystallizing, right? Crystals. right? That then melt and release. So it's like you're almost recording certain energy in those crystals.
I was looking at a post that you guys did like a few days ago about how like when chocolate's in a liquid form, it's like a new Newtonian fluid or something.
Oh yeah.
What was that post about?
Eric is better at explaining because he used to
What?
play with
No,
cornstarch.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. You mix cornstarch and water and then hit it with a hammer and it cracks. Did you ever do that as a kid?
No.
Or as an adult? Go, yeah, you should. It's fun. Well, it's kind of like, you know, when you vibrate chocolate, it moves. You know, it gets the air bubbles out. So it's kind of like you can play with cornstarch and water and do a similar thing where it's, you know, something. It's you know, particles suspended in a matrix of something. You know, like cacao particles ground in that matrix of fat. So. But
it's a good way to understand the laws of Newton. When we go to school, we taught to them about like, okay, a liquid will go, keep moving if there's any, you know, has any resistance on it. But now with chocolate, because it's a liquid and it just doesn't move until there is a force, you know. So that's what that Newtonian actually means. Somebody's asking, do you think someone will embed a more efficient machine for preparing drinking chocolate? Oh man, I stopped. I've been harassing fellow. Told me
I worked at Joyride. Dandelion came and asked us if we could make a hot keg system for drinking chocolate, and we had to turn them down because like it's 60-pound kegs, and imagine if they were hot. Like that's almost a weapon to like hurt.
Yeah, that's true.
So. Yeah, no, but I think that's a good question because it's so necessary. You know, I think what made coffee was a lot of the technology, the ability to have the V60 and all this funky, cool little stuff that people can have and geek out about it. And with chocolate, we're just like boil it and whisk it, and it's just, you know, it's so.
I don't know.
I mean, that's what people consume it. We don't make it like that, but you know, but there is definitely a big need.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd say it's shifting because for me. That can be a chance to slow down and have your own little ceremony, right? It's like, here's part of my morning ritual, right? I'm warming up the water, I'm, you know, melting it in, I'm whisking it in, and it's like, you know, it becomes some, you know, free time almost, right? So efficiency isn't necessarily always a great thing.
Yeah, but it's necessary to have some type of technology, I think, for drinking chocolate.
Yeah.
But so wouldn't the technology be just like individual drinking packets? Because I've seen a lot of makers kind of bring more of those to the market, like hot cocoa packets.
Yeah, but you know, it's so much waste. Like we wanted to do that, and that's why we decided to go for the wheels because it's like really more plastic for one drink. Like, oh, I can do it. But I like, you know, what I see is like more like in a workplace. You know, if we can figure out how to make drinking chocolate easier in the workplace, you know, because mostly people like, you know, we hate our jobs and you just want to go there and do stuff. Yeah, I was talking with somebody who does co-working, and he was also telling me that the biggest consumption is tea, because the tea you have to pour it out, put it in a little bag, and then boil it. And the coffee, when you actually just like pump it, and there is this level of people like either becoming a ritual or wanting to like, you know, lose time at their job place. So I think there is a need for that. Yeah, we had 2 minutes. Oh my God, Anjuli.
That's like, I think mochas, like, I think that when you go to a cafe and you order a mocha, there are a lot of different ways that cafes prepare them. So when I worked at Blue Bottle, we would make a ganache. And so that was already like a liquid form. And then you just kind of like froth that up with the milk, and that makes a delicious mocha. So what are some better methods to kind of have that available? I've seen Bisou chocolate has like a syrup, kind of like a concentrated chocolate syrup that you would add that always reminds me of like the Hershey's syrup that would come in those like jars or whatever. But yeah, what's the best form? Forever a question.
Yeah, it's tricky too, because you think about the baristas with the espresso machine, right? So how much should that do for coffee? You know, so something.
Cost though, they're like they can be
50,000.
Yeah. But we need chocolate cafes. So if some kind of technology allows you to, you know, make amazing drinks, then a way like the espresso machine, but for chocolate drinks.
Are you guys go chocolate cafe?
What's that?
Are you gonna have a Cru Chocolate cafe?
Probably. We would like to.
Yeah, someday.
Yeah. Well, so 1 minute. Thank you, everyone that logged in here. I wish I could wave when you were waving, but.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I hope it was fun.
Yeah, and thank you to that steak, Home with Chocolate, Don't Come On.
Emily Mantu.
Chocolate Institute with Karla. This has been fun. I spent
amazing.
all day yesterday on bed just watching
Thank you, Rusty.
one video. So and we'll be there tomorrow making food, you know.
Yep, tomorrow night, 7:30 Pacific time, we're going to show you 3 different ways to use chocolate in quick little foods you can make at home.
Yeah.
So that'll be fun.
Awesome.
Thank you, Anjuli.
Thank you so much.
Karla,
Great to see you. Great to see everybody.
Nice to see you.
Thank you.
Bye.
See you soon. Good night.
Good night.
That's the food hour.